A lone elephant, standing motionless in the scorching African sun, a curious tourist, camera in hand. Their eyes meet, and in that moment, everything changes. What unfolds next is a story that will leave you breathless.
Before we start, please subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means everything to us, and it's the only way for the stories of these beautiful animals, who often suffer in silence, to reach more people. It helps us keep our work going. Please subscribe now. We know that God will reward you twice for helping these animals have their voices heard.
Questioning everything you thought you knew about these gentle giants. The vast savanna stretched out as far as the eye could see, shimmering under the relentless African sun. Dust devils danced across the parched earth, stirring up memories of rains long past. And there, like a statue carved from living stone, stood an enormous bull elephant. His skin was weathered and scarred, telling tales of 100 battles fought and won. But it was his eyes that caught your attention, deep, soulful pools that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. This was no ordinary elephant. There was something different about him. The air around him seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, drawing the gaze of every living creature within sight. Birds fell silent, their songs replaced by the whisper of wind through sun-bleached grass. Even the acacia trees seemed to lean in, their branches reaching out as if trying to touch this majestic being. Nearby, a group of tourists huddled in their open-top Jeep, cameras clicking furiously. The sound of shutters echoed across the plain, a staccato rhythm that punctuated the heavy silence. But amidst the frantic energy of the group, one woman stood apart from the rest. Sarah, a wildlife photographer from New York, felt drawn to this majestic creature in a way she couldn't explain. It was as if an invisible thread had been pulled taut between them, tugging at her very soul. She took a hesitant step forward, her heart pounding in her chest so loudly she was sure the others could hear it. The elephant's gaze locked onto Sarah, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Time stood still, the air heavy with anticipation. The other tourists whispered nervously, their voices carrying on the breeze. What's she doing? Is she crazy? But Sarah couldn't hear them. All she could focus on was a connection she felt with this incredible animal. As Sarah inched closer, the elephant's ears flared slightly. Was it a warning? A sign of aggression? The tour guide's voice rang out, sharp with fear. "Ma'am, please step back. It's not safe." But something told Sarah to trust her instincts. She raised her hand, palm out, in a gesture of peace. And then the unthinkable happened. The massive elephant began to move, not away from Sarah, as everyone expected, but towards her. Each thunderous step sent tremors through the ground, rippling outward like waves on a pond. The other tourists gasped, some even screamed. But Sarah stood her ground, her eyes never leaving the elephants. Time seemed to slow as the distance between them closed. 10 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. Sarah could feel the elephant's warm breath on her face, could smell the earthy scent of his skin. Her heart raced, but not with fear, with anticipation, as if she were on the verge of discovering something extraordinary. And that's when it happened, the moment that would change everything. The elephant, this tank of muscle and bone that could have crushed Sarah without a second thought, did something that left everyone watching in stunned silence. He slowly, gently, extended his trunk and placed it in Sarah's outstretched hand. If this story has captured your imagination, make sure to subscribe now for more incredible animal encounters that will leave you speechless. The connection was electric. Sarah felt a surge of emotion, so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. It was as if every nerve ending in her body had come alive, tingling with an energy she'd never experienced before. But this was just the beginning, because as she stood there, hand in trunk with this magnificent creature, the elephant began to pull, not roughly, but with a purposeful gentleness that spoke of an intelligence far beyond what anyone had imagined. He was leading her somewhere, and Sarah, caught up in the magic of the moment, found herself following. The tour guide's protests faded into the background, drowned out by the thundering of Sarah's own heartbeat. With each step, the tension mounted. Where was this elephant taking her? What could be so important that it would risk approaching a human? They walked for what seemed like hours, though it was probably only minutes. The landscape around them changed, the open savanna giving way to scattered trees and rocky outcroppings. The elephant led Sarah with unwavering determination, navigating the terrain with a grace that belied his massive size. As they walked, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the world around her. She'd been on countless safaris, had photographed elephants more times than she could count. But this was different. It was as if she were seeing the African wilderness through new eyes. Every blade of grass, every bird call, every shift in the breeze seemed to carry a message she was only now beginning to understand. The elephant paused occasionally, his trunk reaching out to touch a tree here, a rock there. Sarah watched in fascination, realizing that he was leaving a scent trail. Was he marking the way back? Or was there some deeper purpose to his actions, some elephant language she couldn't begin to comprehend? As they continued their journey, Sarah's mind raced with questions. What had made this elephant choose her? Was it random chance? Or was there something more at play? She thought back to all the stories she'd heard over the years. Tales of elephants rescuing humans, of bonds formed across species lines. Had she always dismissed them as exaggerations, as wishful thinking? And if so, what did that say about the limits of her own understanding? The sun had begun its descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. When they finally reached their destination, the elephant led Sarah to a small copse of trees, hidden from view of the main savanna. As they entered the shade, Sarah gasped. There, nestled in a makeshift nest of branches and leaves, lay a tiny elephant calf. But something was wrong. The calf's breathing was labored, its small body trembling with each inhale. Sarah's heart clenched as she realized this baby was sick, desperately ill, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The elephant hadn't just randomly chosen Sarah. Somehow, impossibly, he had recognized something in her. Had he sensed her compassion, her desire to help, or was it something even more incredible? Had he somehow known that Sarah's brother was a veterinarian specializing in large mammals? As Sarah knelt beside the struggling calf, her mind raced. She knew she had to act fast. With shaking hands, she pulled out her satellite phone and dialed her brother's number. "Tom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I need your help. You're not going to believe this, but..." What happened next was nothing short of a miracle. Guided by Tom's expert advice, Sarah worked tirelessly to save the baby elephant's life. She used water from her canteen to cool its fevered body, her fingers gently massaging the leathery skin. She spoke softly to the calf, words of encouragement in a language it couldn't understand, but whose meaning transcended speech. As she worked, Sarah became acutely aware of the father elephant's presence. He stood watch nearby, his massive form a silent sentinel. But there was more to it than simple protection. Every so often, he would reach out with his trunk, gently touching the calf, then Sarah. It was as if he were offering encouragement, thanking her for her efforts. Hours passed in a blur of tension and hope. The sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Shadows lengthened, and the sounds of the savannah changed as nocturnal creatures began to stir. And just when Sarah was starting to lose hope, the calf's eyes fluttered open. It let out a weak but unmistakable trumpet, the sound of life, of hope renewed. If you're moved by this incredible story of connection between humans and animals, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss our next heart-pounding adventure. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she watched the baby elephant struggle to its feet. Its legs were wobbly, uncertain, but with each passing moment, strength seemed to flow back into its small body. The father elephant let out a rumbling purr, a sound so deep Sarah felt it in her bones. He gently nuzzled his calf, trunk intertwining with trunk in a gesture of pure love. And then, In a moment that would be forever etched in Sarah's memory, both elephants turned to her. Their eyes, so different from human eyes and yet so expressive, held a depth of gratitude that transcended species. In that moment, Sarah understood that she had been part of something truly extraordinary, not just saving a life, but bridging the gap between two worlds. As the elephant family ambled away into the gathering dusk, Sarah felt forever changed. The events of the day played through her mind like a film. Each frame burned into her memory with vivid clarity. She had glimpsed a world where the impossible became possible, where the boundaries between humans and animals blurred into something beautiful and profound. Sarah's journey back to the stunned tour group was a haze of emotion and revelation. Every step felt different now, as if the very earth beneath her feet had shifted. The savannah, which had always been a place of wonder for her, now held new mysteries, new possibilities. When she finally reached the group, Sarah was met with a barrage of questions, exclamations of relief, and more than a few admonishments for her reckless behavior. But as she recounted her incredible experience, the mood shifted. Skepticism gave way to awe, fear to wonder. The story of the elephant who saw human help would spread like wildfire, first among the safari goers, then beyond. It would be picked up by local news outlets, then international ones. Experts would debate its validity. Scientists would propose studies, and conservationists would use it as a rallying cry for the protection of these magnificent creatures. But for Sarah, the impact was far more personal. In the days and weeks that followed, she found herself unable to return to her old life. The connection she had felt with the elephants had awakened something within her, a calling she could no longer ignore. She extended her stay in Africa, throwing herself into elephant research and conservation efforts. She spent countless hours observing herds, documenting their behaviors, their family structures, their incredible displays of emotion and intelligence. With each passing day, her understanding deepened, and with it, her conviction that these animals were far more than simply beasts to be studied or protected. They were thinking, feeling beings with a complexity that rivaled our own. Sarah's photographs, once praised for their technical skill, now carried a new depth of emotion. Through her lens, she captured moments of tenderness between mothers and calves, the playful antics of juveniles, the dignified wisdom of the elders. And in each image, there was something more, a spark of connection, a hint of the profound bond she had experienced firsthand. Her work began to gain attention, not just in wildlife photography circles, but in the broader world of conservation and animal rights. She was invited to give talks, to share her story and her insights. And with each retelling, Sarah found new depths to explore, new lessons to uncover. She spoke of the incredible intelligence of elephants, of their complex social structures, and their capacity for emotion. She told of how they mourned their dead, how they used tools, how they communicated over vast distances using infrasound. But more than that, she spoke of the connection she had felt, a connection that, she believed, was possible for anyone who opened their heart to it. As Sarah's influence grew, so did the impact of her message. People who had never given much thought to elephants beyond seeing them in zoos or on nature documentaries began to see them in a new light. Donations to elephant conservation efforts increased. Petitions to end the ivory trade gained new signatures. Ecotourism companies began to offer experiences focused on respectful observation rather than intrusive interactions. But perhaps the most profound changes were the small, personal ones. People wrote to Sarah, sharing how her story had inspired them to look at the animals in their own lives differently. A woman described the newfound bond she felt with her aging dog. A farmer spoke of his changed perspective on the cows he had once seen as mere livestock. A child wrote of how he had convinced his parents to stop buying products tested on animals. These stories touched Sarah deeply, reminding her that the ripples of one extraordinary encounter could spread far and wide, changing hearts and minds in ways she could never have imagined. Years passed, and Sarah's work continued to evolve. She expanded her focus beyond elephants, exploring the intelligence and emotional lives of other species, from the problem-solving abilities of octopuses to the complex social structures of wolves. With each new discovery, each new connection formed, her conviction grew stronger that the divide between humans and animals was far smaller than most people realized. But through it all, Sarah never forgot the elephant who had changed her life. She returned to that spot on the savannah many times over the years, hoping for another glimpse of him and his calf. And while she never saw that particular pair again, she felt their presence in every herd she encountered, in every trunk raised in greeting, in every rumbling call that echoed across the plains. One day, years after her extraordinary encounter, Sarah found herself leading a small group of aspiring wildlife photographers on a safari. As they watched a herd of elephants at a watering hole, one of the younger photographers asked her a question. "What's the most important thing you've learned in all your years of studying these animals?" The young woman asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Sarah paused, considering the question carefully. How could she distill decades of experience, of wonder, of heartbreak and joy into a single lesson? She thought back to that fateful day, to the moment when an elephant had placed his trust in her, had asked for her help in a language beyond words. "The most important thing I've learned," Sarah said finally, her voice soft but filled with conviction, "is that we are all connected. Not just humans to other humans, but to every living thing on this planet. The boundaries we create between species, between nations, between individuals, they're illusions. When we truly open our hearts and minds, we discover a web of life so intricate, so beautiful, that it takes our breath away." She paused, watching as a young elephant playfully splashed in the water, its joyful trumpeting echoing across the savannah. "These elephants," Sarah continued, gesturing towards a herd, "they're not just animals to be admired from afar. They're our relatives on this earth, fellow travelers on this incredible journey of life. They feel joy, they feel pain, they love their families just as fiercely as we do. And when we recognize that, when we truly internalize it, it changes everything. It changes how we see the world, how we treat each other, how we approach every aspect of our lives." The young photographer nodded slowly, her gaze moving from Sarah to the elephants and back again. "But how?" she asked. "How do we make that connection? How do we bridge that gap?" Sarah smiled, remembering her own journey, the fear and uncertainty she had felt in those first moments with the elephant. "It starts with openness," she said, "with a willingness to see beyond our preconceptions, to challenge what we think we know. It starts with empathy, not just for those who are like us, but for all living beings. And it starts with respect, a deep, abiding respect for the intricate web of life that sustains us all." She paused, her eyes scanning the horizon, taking in the breathtaking beauty of the African savanna. "But most of all," she continued, "it starts with love, a love that transcends species, that recognizes the spark of life in every creature, no matter how different they may seem from us. When we approach the world with that kind of love, that's when the real magic happens. That's when we discover connections we never dreamed possible." As if on cue, a soft rumbling call echoed across the plain. The herd of elephants began to move, their massive forms silhouetted against the setting sun. Sarah watched them go, her heart full of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment. "Remember," she said softly, as much to herself as to her companions, "every encounter is an opportunity. Every moment holds a potential for connection, for understanding, for growth. Stay open, stay curious, and never, ever underestimate the power of compassion to bridge even the widest of gaps." As the last elephant disappeared over the horizon, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that her journey was far from over, that there were still so many mysteries to unravel, so many connections to be made. But she also knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. And somewhere out there, on the vast savannah, a father elephant and his now-grown calf continued their own journey, carrying with them the memory of the day when trust overcame fear and a human became family. Their story, like Sarah's, had become part of the greater tapestry of life on this extraordinary planet. A reminder of the incredible bonds that can form when we open our hearts to the wonders around us. As the group packed up their equipment and prepared to head back to camp, Sarah took one last look at the African landscape stretching out before her. The sky was ablaze with the colors of sunset, the air filled with the calls of birds settling in for the night. And in that moment, she felt more connected to the world around her than ever before. "Remember," she said softly, her words carried on the evening breeze. "In a world full of wonders, sometimes the most incredible stories are the ones that remind us of the connections we share with all living things. Keep your hearts open, your eyes wide, and who knows, the next miraculous encounter might just be waiting around the corner for you." As Sarah and her group made their way back to camp, the African night came alive around them. The chirping of crickets filled the air, punctuated by the distant roar of a lion and the haunting call of a hyena. The stars began to appear, one by one, until the sky was a dazzling tapestry of light. Sarah's mind wandered back to the countless nights she'd spent under these same stars, each one a reminder of how small she was in the grand scheme of things, yet how connected she felt to it all. She thought of the elephant who had changed her life, of the baby she had helped save, and of all the incredible creatures she'd encountered in the years since. Back at the camp, as the group gathered around the fire to share their experiences of the day, Sarah found herself reflecting on the broader implications of her journey. She thought about the challenges facing not just elephants, but countless species across the globe. Habitat loss, climate change, poaching. The threats were numerous and daunting. But as she looked around at the eager faces of her students, illuminated by the flickering firelight, she felt a surge of hope. These young photographers, with their passion and their fresh perspectives, represented the future. They had the power to share stories, to change minds, to inspire action. "You know," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the chatter, "what we do here, it's about more than just taking pretty pictures. It's about bearing witness. It's about giving a voice to those who can't speak for themselves." The group fell silent, all eyes turning to Sarah. "Every image you capture," she continued, "every story you tell, has the power to change someone's perspective, to make them see the world a little differently. And that, my friends, is where real change begins." She paused, stoking the fire. Sparks danced upward, mirroring the stars above. "I've seen it happen time and time again. A single photograph, a single story, can be the spark that ignites a person's passion for conservation. It can be the thing that makes someone decide to volunteer at a wildlife sanctuary, or donate to a conservation fund, or simply be more mindful of their impact on the natural world." Sarah's voice grew more impassioned as she spoke. "And it's not just about the big, charismatic animals like elephants. As much as I love them, it's about helping people understand the interconnectedness of all living things, the delicate balance that exists in ecosystems, the ripple effects that our actions can have, for better or worse." She looked around the circle, meeting each person's gaze. "That's why what we do is so important. We're not just photographers. We're storytellers. We're educators. We're advocates for the natural world." One of the younger members of the group, a quiet girl named Amina, spoke up. "But Sarah," she said, her voice tinged with worry, "sometimes it all feels so overwhelming. There's so much destruction, so much indifference. How can we possibly make a difference?" Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of Amina's concern. It was a feeling she knew well, one she had grappled with many times over the years. "It's true," she admitted. "The challenges we face are enormous. But you know what? So is the power of human compassion. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen how one person's act of kindness can set off a chain reaction. I've seen how a single story can change hearts and minds." She leaned forward, her eyes bright with conviction. "Never underestimate the impact you can have. Every person you reach, every mind you open, every heart you touch, it all adds up. It creates a ripple effect that can spread far beyond what we can see. Sarah paused, gathering her thoughts. You know, there's a quote I love from the anthropologist Margaret Mead. She said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That's us, right here. We may be small in number, but our potential impact is enormous." The group nodded, some murmuring in agreement. Sarah could see the spark of determination in their eyes, the same spark she had felt all those years ago when an elephant had placed his trust in her. "So here's what I want you to do," Sarah said, her voice strong and clear. "I want you to go out there and tell stories, not just with your cameras, but with your words, with your actions. Share what you've seen here. Help others understand the beauty and the fragility of the natural world. Be a voice for those who can't speak for themselves." She gestured towards the vast darkness beyond the circle of firelight. Out there, right now, there are elephants roaming the savannah. There are lions stalking their prey. There are countless small dramas of life and death playing out, just as they have for millennia. Our job is to help people see the magic in that, to help them understand why it matters. Sarah's voice softened, but her words carried no less weight. And remember, it's not just about the big, dramatic moments. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the quiet ones. The gentle touch of a mother elephant comforting her calf, the playful antics of young monkeys, the patient persistence of a dung beetle. Every creature, no matter how small, has a story to tell. Our job is to listen, to observe, and to share. As the fire crackled and popped, Sarah could see her words sinking in. The faces around her were thoughtful, inspired. She knew that each of these young photographers would go out into the world carrying not just the technical skills they had learned, but a deeper understanding of their role as stewards of a natural world. "Tomorrow," Sarah said, "we'll head out again. We'll have another chance to witness the wonders of this incredible place. But this time, I want you to look beyond just getting the perfect shot. I want you to think about the story you're telling, about the connection you're making, about the impact you can have." She stood up, stretching her arms wide as if to embrace the entire African night. Because out there, my friends, is a world full of stories waiting to be told. And we are the storytellers. As the group began to disperse for the night, heading to their tents with cameras clutched close and minds full of possibilities, Sarah remained by the fire for a moment longer. She looked up at the star-filled sky, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the path her life had taken. From that fateful encounter with an elephant years ago to this moment, sharing her passion with a new generation, Sarah felt as though her life had come full circle. Yet she knew it wasn't an ending, but rather a continuation, a passing of the torch to those who would carry on the work of bridging the gap between humans and the natural world. As she finally turned to head to her own tent, Sarah whispered a quiet thank you to the elephant who had started it all. Somewhere out there in the vast African night, she knew, he and his family were sleeping under these same stars, connected as all living things are in the great web of life. And with that thought, Sarah closed her eyes, ready to dream of the adventures tomorrow would bring. For in a world full of wonders, every day held the promise of a new story, a new connection, a new understanding. All one had to do was keep their heart open and their eyes wide.